Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today we're going to be going over the playoffs for NAL, and we've been keeping up with this, but finally things have concluded, so we can talk about the last two matches, which would be this one, and I think probably before that I'll do just a little bit of review on the other matches in case you are not up to speed with them. As far as housekeeping stuff, the two Brazil videos that I did, I think are my two worst performing videos in my last 10 videos. So, I mean, maybe I just won't talk about it if people aren't interested. It seems like they are, on average, much less interested in Brazil than they are in Europe or NA. So maybe I'll stop talking about it. If you really want to see me keep talking about Brazil a bit going forward, do let me know that in the comments, and maybe that will inspire me. Anyways, let's talk about the matches. So let's try to recap these fairly quickly. Sonics versus M80. It was an M80 win in 3 maps. Sonics could have won it in 2 though if they hadn't let Border slip. There was one round that was particularly heartbreaking to see them let go. If they'd won that, they would have won in regulation if everything else had stayed the same. And then they would have gone on to win 2-0 because they were dominant on Skyscraper. But unfortunately, no, they did let Border slip, and so they lost in map 3 Villa. M80 advances. Oxygen versus Beast Coast. I think this one a pretty big surprise, not only because Beast Coast win, but because they won so dominantly. Oxygen only getting 4 rounds, and there were signs that this might happen. Oxygen had a really poor final play day. You know, their last 2 matches, they only got, I think, 2 rounds between the two of them. They got 7-0'd and 7-2'd. And you know, only 4 rounds in their next 2 maps here against Beast Coast. But I do think that most people expected them to bounce back, and even if Beast Coast won, that it would be a close affair. But I think overall this was a pretty large surprise. That sets up an LCQ seeding match, so not quite just a lower bracket, but this is just a seeding match. So they played for $8,000. They played for a better position in the LCQ, but in the grand scheme of things, they didn't play for a whole lot. No real major implications. Again, a better seed is a little bit better, but I don't think it's going to make any real practical difference. And the money's nice, but SI points I think are the real coveted thing. The real money to be made will be at SI and before that at the majors. Oxygen takes it down 2-0 fairly decisively. One overtime map, but still a 2-0 with one of them being a 7-3. Good on Oxygen. Again, not playing for a whole lot, but I think they proved just a little bit there. And then the upper bracket semis, M80 taking down SpaceStation. Absolute destruction, even bigger than the one Beast Coast handed out to Oxygen. I don't think this one is as big of a surprise in the result. I think plenty of people expected M80 to win. Plenty of people thought SpaceStation would take it, but yeah, I just don't think anybody thought that SpaceStation was getting only 3 rounds against M80. If I remember right, didn't SpaceStation handle these guys pretty easily in the regular stage? It was, where is it? M80 versus SpaceStation. Yeah, it was a 7-3 win. So yeah, I think a little bit surprising. We even go back to Theme Park. SpaceStation picks it because they saw M80 lose to Beast Coast pretty decisively on it. But no, M80 really came out swinging in the playoffs. Again, a little bit shaky versus Sonics, but devastating against SpaceStation. And then DarkZero versus Beast Coast, a close match, but the expected result in the end, DarkZero takes it down. I think a lot of people were rooting for Beast Coast, but not to be. They took a close Oregon, but they lost slightly less close Theme Park and Skyscrapers. Not even max regulation there. Still 4 rounds is respectable, but not especially close on either of those maps. DarkZero advances to the major, and again to play against M80 for a bunch of money, some SI points, and then maybe seeding. Still not 100% sure if there is any seeding going into stage 2 of the major, or if this was just for the money, the accolades, and the SI points. Okay, so yeah, that sets up the final 2 matches that we have not yet talked about. We'll start with SpaceStation versus Beast Coast. 8-7 win for SpaceStation on Chalet, 7-4 win on Border. I'm going to look at the stats, so we'll talk about this again in just a moment, but just for a quick overview, very close on Chalet. Obviously, if Beast Coast had won in round 15 instead of SpaceStation, we would have seen Villa. Who knows what would have happened there, but no, SpaceStation does close it down 2-0, advancing to phase 1 of the major, not phase 2, like M80 and DarkZero are going to. So SpaceStation going to have to, do well enough to advance, and we'll see what they do there. Beast Coast still has a chance. They have to play against the likes of, and well, it's a bracket, so they won't play against all of these teams, but some number of Sonics, Oxygen, Parabellum, Aerial Rise, GGG, Karn & Co., and then maybe Reality TV. They're technically in the bracket, but that team doesn't really exist anymore. I don't know if somebody else has the license. I heard somebody saying that maybe the West Garfield Park roster with like Bio and Snake and Valor or something might have the license, but I'm not sure. That might just be a buy for GGG. We'll have to see. One side of the bracket does look much weaker because one side has Parabellum, Sonics, and Oxygen, as well as Aerial Rise. So 3 of the pro teams on one side. The other side has Beast Coast, Karn & Co., GGG, and then potentially RTV or potentially nobody. So, I mean, yeah, definitely it looks like an easy run. Well, maybe not easy. I think GGG will put up a great fight. They might even beat Beast Coast. We'll see what happens. I'll probably make a separate video either as that's going on or after that's concluded. Anyways, yeah, that's that. And then M80 versus DarkZero. This was a bit of a banger, I guess. M80 won 2 close maps, and you'll notice because DarkZero was so dominant on Oregon that they actually had the superior round differential. M80 only went +1 here, +2 here. DarkZero actually go +5 on Oregon. So they won more rounds than M80 did, but I mean, as is the nature of best of threes, because of the structure we have going on here in Siege, it's possible to win fewer rounds, but win the series. And I mean, I don't think that's especially uncompetitive. That's just sort of how best of threes would work in any game. But anyways, let's not get too far off topic here. Theme Park, Oregon, Chalet. I guess let's save this for the stats screen, because it'll show the who won which rounds. Anyways, they're both advancing to phase 2 of the major, so not playing for a whole lot in that regard, but again, they played for like $32,000 and 20 SI points. The money probably more significant than the SI points, but the SI points still nice to have. It's like 150 versus 130 or something like that. Not a massive difference, but a difference nonetheless. Anyways, let's move on to look at the stats. So SpaceStation versus Beast Coast. So again, we'll return to M80 versus DarkZero in a minute. This one, Beast Coast was leading for most of the game. They take the first 2 rounds, SpaceStation evens it up, and then Beast Coast the next 2. I think you're pretty happy with 4 defensive rounds on Chalet. And then switching sides, 1 for SpaceStation, but then 2 for Beast Coast. They're now up 6-3. They have 3 match point map point opportunities. SpaceStation brings it back to parity though, so Beast Coast let it slip a little bit. I think being up 6-3, you definitely should close it out. It's not a massive choke. You're not up 6-0, 6-1, 6-2, but still 6-3 is a pretty massive lead. Probably should have won that. And then SpaceStation wins 1, Beast Coast another, and then SpaceStation wins it in round 15. So heartbreaker for Beast Coast. They probably should have won that map, and then that would have given them more of a chance in the series. And let's look at border now. Not terribly interesting, it's just a 7-4, but you know, SpaceStation win 1, Beast Coast win 3. So again, a bit of a lead for Beast Coast after a few rounds, and SpaceStation get 2 more to bring it back to parity, and then Beast Coast get a round, but then SpaceStation the next 4 in a row, ending with a Merc 1v2 clutch to close out that map 7-4. So two comebacks, I guess, for SSG, a little bit smaller of a comeback in the second map, but still they were at a deficit of at least 2 rounds at one point. So yeah, good on SpaceStation to have that resilience, and unfortunate for Beast Coast letting it slip to some degree. SpaceStation not the favorite in this match according to the community. I think that's, I mean, I think these numbers are fair enough. Beast Coast beat SpaceStation in the regular stage in round 15, so very close game, but still they won. SpaceStation just got decimated by M80. Beast Coast just beat Oxygen almost as hard as SpaceStation got beat by M80, and then they had a close match against DarkZero, who was the first seed from the group stage. So a lot of reasons to go with Beast Coast. I think still, despite all that, SpaceStation was still sort of the favorite, but I mean, maybe that's just not fair. Maybe Beast Coast deserved to be the favorites like the community predictions suggest. Anyways, regardless of what happens, SpaceStation take it down, and Hot and Cold, Fultz, J90, pretty nice stats. Hot and Cold and Fultz now the 2 veterans of the org. J90, Merc, Forrest all joining recently, and Merc and Forrest, the 2 players really struggling not only in this match but overall, definitely the 2 lowest rated players on the team. And I think SpaceStation can be happy with their performance. They sort of just cobbled together this team with the pieces from old SpaceStation, Astralis, and then Merc over from TSM. So I think they did pretty well going to the major in this initial stage. Just missed out on going directly to phase 2, but still pretty good. I'm not going to look at the overall stats in this video. Maybe I'll save that for another one where I can slow down a little bit and do that, because this video would end up being very long if I did look at the other stats. Anyways, on Beast Coast, it's Vertical on top, and he sort of really turned things around. He was one of the lower rated players after the group stage, and he ends up the 2nd highest rated player on Beast Coast. And so it's Hat, and then him, and then Mr. B, and then Doc and Hyper in some order, pretty similarly rated, just like in this game. The 2 players that you probably needed to see more out of this stage if you wanted to go directly to the major. Again, still had the LCQ to play through, still could be going to the major, but they're not locked in just yet. And I guess not too much else to look at. Only 1 plant in the series is funny. 4 clutches though, on the other hand. I think that does it for this. Let's take a look at the other game. So again, M80 versus DarkZero. Theme Park goes all 15 rounds, and okay, let's take a look at it. M80 gets the first round, DarkZero gets the next 3. I think you feel really, really good at this point. You're up 3-1 on your attacking half of Theme Park. If there's any map that you feel good about winning attacks on, it's got to be Theme Park, right? Unfortunately, they let it go back to 3-3. I think you're still happy with only having won 3 rounds. If you won 4 or 5, you'd feel very good, but still, I think 3 is pretty solid. M80 gets the next 2 rounds, though, so DarkZero goes down. They're still in the defensive half, and they do manage to leverage that into the next 3 rounds in a row. They go up 6-5. They have the initial map point, but M80 brings it back. They go to overtime. DarkZero gets a round, so they're on map point again. They have the opportunity to win by winning either the next round or the round after that, but they don't do it. M80 wins the next 2, and they take Theme Park in round 15. So DarkZero with, I think, 3 opportunities to close out the game. They were up 6-5, 7-6, and 7, even 7-7, but, whoever wins the next round. But they don't do it. In terms of the predictions, I guess, since I just noticed this, M80 pretty heavily the favorite in the eyes of the community. I guess they were on a bit of a hot streak. They had that close match against Sonics, but they smoked SSG. DarkZero had a close affair against Beast Coast. I guess maybe give it to M80, but I feel like DarkZero deserved a little bit more credit here. They definitely could have won this 2-0, obviously, based on what happened on Theme Park in Oregon. And I'm not even going to look at Oregon 7-2 destruction. Looking at Chalet, though, it's sort of an inverse of what we see on Theme Park, except for the result is the same with M80 taking it. DarkZero gets the first round, M80 gets a round, DarkZero gets 3 rounds, and then M80 get 1 more. So attacking on Chalet, I think you're happy enough with 4. 5 or 6 would be phenomenal, but 4 is certainly good. You're not very, very unhappy with that or anything. And then on the other hand, only winning 2 defenses, it's passable. You can get by. Obviously, they make it to overtime, only having won the 2 because they get the 4-2 half as well on M80's attacks. DarkZero gets the next round, so they're up 5-2, but M80 battles it back just like DarkZero did. 4 in a row for them. They go on to map and match point first. DarkZero sends it to overtime, but again, M80 is better in overtime, and they win it in 14 rounds instead of 15. So a couple of overtime maps is enough for M80 to secure first place in NA. A lot of money, some SI points, all that good stuff. Looking at the stats, DS Lucas on top. He ends as the second highest rated player. Spoit, I think, beats him out by just like 0.01. Gomez had a pretty good showing, maybe not in this game, obviously not bad, but not amazing. Very good on the entry, though. A lot better performance, I think, in the playoffs than in the group stage. He ends as the 3rd highest rated player, whereas he was like the 4th or 5th player at one point. Kino doing Kino things, just going slightly negative is fine as the hard support. Iconic struggling a tiny bit, but give him a little bit of leeway. He's sort of trying to do a lot of stuff, including IGLing. So I guess at the end of the day, it looked like Spoit and Iconic might have been the entry duo, with Gomez in limbo a little bit in terms of his role as far as the community perceived it. But I guess it's Spoit and Gomez on the entry, Iconic sort of on the flex, which makes sense. I think if you are a good flex player, it makes a lot of sense for, if you're also an IGL, to play that role. If you can just not have to tell somebody else to do a million things, if you can just do a million things because it's sort of your vision dictating things the most, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of times it has been the hard beat player as the IGL because maybe mechanically you have less stuff to focus on, so that sort of makes sense. But if you can keep up with your APMs and whatnot, I think a flex player on IGL does make a lot of sense. We've also seen entry players do it, but it's just, maybe on entry, like first entry or certain positions, it might be harder. Like, especially notably in the past, people have said it's really hard to IGL from flank watch, whatever. Anyways, yeah, Iconic. Well, I'm sure we'll see him pick it up a little bit in the future. He didn't do like bad this stage by any means, just a little bit lackluster in this series, but they did win this series. On the other hand, DarkZero, Gaveni on top, NJR still putting up solid stats, and Pamazoo, Canadian Achieved, all struggling a bit. Probably Pamazoo is the player you needed to see a little bit more out of. Gaveni, NJR, and Pamazoo, and is the 3 most positive players in terms of KD, and 3 of the top 4 rated players overall, so really impressive from DarkZero in that regard. Canadian, sort of your main support at this point, so the lackluster stats add up. And then Achieved has been struggling since he's been on this roster. A lot more bad performances than good ones, but DarkZero have done quite well. If they just won this, they would have been first place in both the group stage and the playoffs, so the overall stage. So again, his stats could have been better, but Gaveni, NJR, Pamazoo, they all looked really enabled. I mean, at the very least, they were putting up good numbers, and you have to imagine that it's not just because of their performances, but because of their backup being quite solid in Canadian and Achieved. So I think definitely give him a break. He did a good job, I believe, behind the scenes. I mean, I would imagine behind the scenes, even if his numbers, as far as we can see, were not very impressive. I would expect him to get better in the future, but again, it does feel like he did quite a lot this stage in terms of supporting his teammates and whatnot. But I think that's gonna do it. I mean, the video is already like 15 minutes, so that's probably long enough. Anyways, other videos coming up soon. I guess I still have Europe to fully recap whenever that concludes. I think it's tomorrow is when the games are gonna be played, and there's some weirdness surrounding that. And then maybe I'll go over the stats for NA. I do want to do maybe some like top 5, top 10, whatever, at least one. We'll see what else. But I'll probably have, you know, a decent amount of time between when all this stuff concludes in the major, and then also, yeah, the LCQ. That'll be something else to talk about. So that's going to do it for me. If you have anything at all to say, feel free to leave it in the comments below, and a like and a subscription would be very much appreciated. All of that being said, catch you guys in the next video.